Great that we get to introduce to you guys our first round draft pick, Mason Graham, along with his family. We have his dad, Alan, his mom, Kimberly, and Grandma Linda. We're going to open up with Mary Kay. She'll ask the first question.
Hi, Mason. Welcome, first of all. My question is, I saw the little clip where you got the text from Miles amongst all those other texts that you got right after you were picked, and I saw you said that was the only text that you answered. So just wondering, what did Miles say in that text, and just how cool was that?
Yeah, he just congratulated me, coming to Cleveland, just excited to work with me, and I'm excited to work with him, make this team better and, put Cleveland back on top.
Chris, why don't you introduce yourself so Mason knows who you are? So when you get the microphone, introduce yourself.
Chris Easterling, Akron Beacon Journal. Just kind of off of that, just expand more on what is kind of the biggest things you want to learn from, a guy like Miles can teach you, especially early on in your career.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect situation I wanted to come into, an established vet that, does it the best. He's been the best for, quite some time now. So just, him teaching me just the tips and tricks of the game, and, just he has a lot of knowledge, so just learn from him.
Hey, Mason, Scott Petrick, the Chronicle Telegram. What have these last 24 hours been like for you, from being Green Bay to coming here and just everything that it's entailed?
Yeah, it's just really crazy. It happens really fast, even though it's a long process. But, everything, speeds up pretty quickly. But, it's just a blessing to be here, with my family and, everyone that got me to this point.
Hey, Mason, Ashley Bastock from Cleveland.com. Reading some of the things your Michigan teammates said about you, it seems like everybody always mentions your football IQ, that you can remember play calls from 2+ years ago. I guess, number one, is that true? Number two, how much has that helped you during the draft process and everything?
Yeah, I feel like that's true. I've played, under a lot of great coaches that have helped me, get to where I am. I brought, when I was in Green Bay, I brought two of my high school coaches that, they developed me a lot and were big pieces of my development. So I've just been blessed to be under a lot of great coaches and, played with a bunch of great players. So I feel like when you surround yourself with those type of people, it only makes you better.
Hey, Mason, Dan Lobby, Cleveland.com. Speaking of great coaches, you get to play for Jim Schwartz, and he's done a lot of great things with defensive linemen. What do you think he can bring out in you?
I feel like, it's a totally different style than I've, been playing. So he's been talking about just taking the handcuffs off me, and, I'm used to playing blocks now, but, getting out more off the ball and more attacking and, causing more negative plays for the offenses. And I feel like I can fit right into the scheme.
Jeff Shadell, News Herald. What do you think playing big-time football in the Big Ten, how will that help you make this next step to the NFL?
Yeah, I felt like I've played, the best competition I've played, along with the best. I like playing against the best too. So, I've played in big-time games throughout my past 3 years, and, I want to play in even bigger games, come to the next level. So.
Hey, Mason, Justin Cooper, ESPN Cleveland. Obviously going into this locker room with a lot of Buckeyes, do you picture there being any bad blood there?
I think we can put, our differences aside and, come for the betterment of the team and just build Cleveland. And, yeah, it's all about winning.
Mason Cameron, Justice News 5 Cleveland. Just walking through the building, the welcome that you got, what was it like to officially become part of this Cleveland Browns organization when you walk through these doors?
Yeah, just a blessing. I always knew ever since my top 30 visit, I had a good feeling about, all the coaches I met with all of them on my 30 visit. I had a good feeling from the top to bottom, just the staff. I feel like everyone here just kind of fits, what I want to be brought into. So everyone around the building has been really cool, and just excited to, come 2 weeks, get the rookie minicamp and, start working.
Hey, Mason, over here. Leah Doherty with WOIO. What do you anticipate to be the biggest challenge as you go from playing at Michigan now to playing at the next level?
I would probably just say, Michigan, one of the reasons why I chose that was, develop me into the NFL player. Coach Harbaugh and a lot of, NFL coaches were already at Michigan. I wanted to, ultimately play in NFL. So I just feel like that transition will be, pretty easy. But, obviously the biggest thing for me would probably be, different style of defense. Just learning, how to attack more and, just learn from the older guys and, all the coaches.
Hey, Mason, Kelsey Russo, Cleveland Browns. From your time in wrestling in high school, what specific attributes from that have helped you in your career in being a strong defensive lineman?
I think the main things are just leverage, just feeling body weight, and especially on the offense and defensive lines. That's what happens all game. It's a battle, short amount of space. You're basically wrestling another guy, so I feel like it translates, really well, and that's why I kind of wanted to do that. And I think it also helps with like mental and physical toughness as well.
Another sort of wrestling-related question, I guess, Mason. I know at the Combine there were some questions about the weight you came in at, you dropped some weight or whatever. What are you at now? And it sounded like most people were saying they didn't think with you that would be much of an issue. And I guess just with that, does the wrestling background sort of help you with those like fluctuations?
Yeah, so the thing with me is I got to the Combine when I was like 304 when I arrived at the Combine, and that kind of week kind of took a toll on me. I was on medical, from like 10 to 7:30 p.m. I missed some of my formal visits, but I feel like the weight's not an issue. I'm 310 right now. I feel really good and kind of ready to go just right into rookie minicamp.
Hey Mason, welcome to Cleveland. Spencer German from Cleveland Browns on SI. Earlier in the week, Kevin sort of talked about when they're evaluating all positions in the draft, but especially at the top of the board, like they're looking for like dominant trait or traits that you bring to the table that you think will allow you to have success at the NFL level pretty quickly here.
I think I'm just not a one-dimensional player. I can use power and speed to my advantage. I'm not just a run stuffer or a pass rusher. I can do both at a really high level, so I feel like that's kind of where I excel.
Hey, Mason, do you know Mike Hall at all? And have you thought about what kind of tandem you guys can form on the interior of the line?
Yeah, I know of him. Played against him for a few years. Seen him. He's, really, high-level player, and, just ready to work with him and make this team better.
Hey, Mason. Nate Ulrich from the Akron Beacon-Journal. Kevin Stefanski said he came away from his meeting with you during the 30 visit thinking you had a big competitive edge to you. Where does that come from, and how do you think you'll fit in with your style and mentality in the AFC North?
I would say it comes from, me just playing, not just football growing up, but I played a lot of sports, so it's always, been my competitive nature to win and, want to win and be the best at, everything I do, whether that be from, playing video games to, being on the field, and playing against Ohio State in football games. So even from the smallest to biggest moments, I'm always, a competitor.
Mason, Mary Kay Cabot from Cleveland.com. Just wondering, were you aware that the whole fan base seemed poised for Travis Hunter to be drafted here, and maybe some fans were a little bit let down when that didn't happen? So my question to you is, first of all, were you aware of that sort of vibe? And then also, what might you say to fans about why they should be equally excited about what you're going to bring to the table?
Yeah, I just, all the stuff on social media you see, but I try not to pay attention to it. But, everything planned out, and, God blessed me to be here, and that's, where I'm going to, play for my next few years and hopefully longer. So, I just feel like, Cleveland's getting, one of the best players, if not the best player in the draft. I feel like, I can do everything, and I can play anywhere along the front, and just coming in with Miles and, all the guys along the front is only going to make the team better.
What have been your initial thoughts of Cleveland so far? Obviously, it's been a short time, but have you been kind of introduced to this Cleveland fan base in any way or heard stories about this fan base?
Yeah, I just heard, that the fans are passionate, coming from the Midwest. I'm kind of used to it now. I was a West Coast kid growing up, but, playing in the Midwest these past few years, I'm kind of familiar with the area, so I feel like it's an easy transition. Michigan's not too far from here and kind of similar.
You've been asked a lot about how wrestling has helped you, but what are some of the other sports and some of the attributes you took from some of those beyond, the competitiveness that's helped you in football?
I'd probably say like baseball, just, moving around, and then I'd say basketball, just kind of the athletic movements, the quick, that's kind of where I get my quickness from. I'd say basketball. My dad, coached one of my little league teams, so it's cool, him coached me up a little bit, but I wasn't the best basketball player, so that's why I chose football. But I feel like all the sports really helped me I'd say rugby too. Just it's a contact sport that I wanted to play. It's just basically football without pads. You can't throw the ball forward, but you can throw it backwards, and you're just tackling big guys. And yeah.
Ashley, and then Kim. Kim.
Hey, Mason, I heard last night, did you go, after you got drafted, stuck around with Will Johnson and wait out the night with him? Was that right that you did that?
Yeah, I mean, that's my guy. We came into Michigan together. We played, that's one of my best friends. And, him just seeing the night he had, wasn't expected, that he was not going to go in the first round. So I just wanted to, be there for him just like he would be there for me.
Is that like the kind of energy, I guess, that you hope to bring as a teammate to the next level then too?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I'm one of the best teammates. I feel like anyone will say that. I just want to be a guy that, my guys in the locker room want to play with and, I want to win games with.
Mason, outside of just, rookie minicamp and football, what are you most looking forward to kind of getting into here as you figure out your new home in Northeast Ohio?
Yeah, just, embracing Cleveland, all the fans, the dog pound. So just kind of getting familiar with, Cleveland as a city and then, as just getting familiar with it, yeah.
Anything else? All right, thanks so much, Mason.
Thank you. Nice meeting you guys.
We're going to pose for a quick photo up there. If you could just hold the jersey for the folks right in the middle there. Let me tuck this in and get this together first. There you go. We always love to get the family around too. If you guys don't mind, if we could do a quick photo with you and Mason. Everybody got a good one? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you guys.
Thank you.